They did it. The madmen actually did it. 28 years ago, a small Nordic country humiliated the most decorated nation in football history at a World Cup. And we're not talking about some weakened Brazil side. That team had Ronaldo, Rivaldo, Roberto Carlos, Bebeto, Dunga, Cafu, some of the greatest players who ever touched a football. Everyone called Norway's win a fluke, a one-time miracle that could never happen again. Norway just repeated the 1998 World Cup. Same scoreline, same stage, same outcome. 5-time champions. The most decorated nation in World Cup history. And on a humid night in New Jersey, they were sent home again by a country that hadn't reached a World Cup quarterfinal in its entire existence. And the Norwegians are going absolutely crazy. Back home, this wasn't just a football result, it was a national event. More than 100,000 people flooded central Oslo to celebrate. The biggest football crowd the city has ever seen. Karl Johans Street turned into a sea of red. Fans locked arm in arm, rocking back and forth in the Viking Row long into the night. The chant itself, the one the world now knows, wasn't born in the stands. It was engineered in a corporate boardroom. We traced the full story. Norway's prime minister called it the product of smart tactics and a full team effort against one of the great football nations. The culture minister went further, calling a place in a World Cup quarterfinal one of the greatest sporting achievements in Norwegian history. The whole country ground to a halt to watch. Traffic dropped by as much as 70% in some cities while the match was on. Betting activity shattered records, with 350,000 people wagering on a single football match for the first time ever. Mobile payments spiked over 500% the moment the final whistle blew, as an entire nation went out to celebrate. Police across the country reported a remarkably calm night, all things considered, though Trondheim had a busier night than most, and in Oslo, fireworks sent around 30 people to urgent care. For one night, a nation of 5.5 million people stood united behind 11 men, and a golden generation nobody saw coming. How Norway even qualified for this tournament, and why the rest of the world dismissed them before a ball was kicked, is a story we told in a separate documentary. But here's the part that should really worry Brazil. This wasn't just a bad night. Going into this game, Brazil had never beaten Norway in a senior men's match, ever. 2 losses, 2 draws, across 4 meetings, stretching all the way back to that famous defeat at the 1998 World Cup, when Norway came from behind to win 2-1 in the group stage. Almost 30 years later, the scoreline barely changed. And it's bigger than just Norway. This is the 5th time in Brazil's last 6 World Cups that they've lost to the first European team they've faced in the knockout rounds. Carlo Ancelotti was brought in specifically to break patterns like this one. Instead, it happened again, on his watch. So is it nerves? The coach himself seems to think so. Earlier in the tournament, Ancelotti was asked directly whether Brazil looked nervous, and he admitted there's a lot of pressure, and that it's something they'd need to work on. Maybe that's the real story here. Brazil carries the weight of 5 World Cups, and a nation that treats anything less as failure. Norway walked out with nothing to lose and everything to gain. And when you play scared against a team playing free, results like this stop being upsets and start looking like a pattern. So let's break down exactly how it happened. Carlo Ancelotti's Brazil, favorites to go all the way. Ståle Solbakken's Norway, appearing in the knockout stage for the first time since 1998. The last time these two teams actually met, a match Norway that also won 2-1. History was already whispering. Norway thought they'd struck first inside 3 minutes, but Patrick Berg's effort was chalked off for offside. Then Brazil should have taken control. A penalty awarded after the video review system reversed the referee's initial call on a challenge from Christopher Ayer. Bruno Guimarães stepped up, and Orjan Nyland guessed right. Saved. The first Brazilian player to miss a World Cup penalty since Zico back in 1986. It should have rattled Norway. Instead, it was Brazil who couldn't find the breakthrough. Vinicius Jr. denied. Gabriel Martinelli denied. Nyland, again and again, standing tall. The temperature climbed. The game slowed with it. Brazil sat back, content to let Norway have the ball without doing much with it. For long stretches, it looked like this one was heading to extra time. Then, in the 79th minute, everything changed. Andreas Schjelderup, on as a substitute, whips in a cross. Erling Haaland rises above Arsenal's Gabriel, the same Gabriel he battles every week in the Premier League, and powers a header past Alisson. 1-0 Norway. 11 minutes later, Schjelderup finds him again. This time, Haaland doesn't need any help in the air. He takes it, turns, and drives a shot low into the corner from the edge of the box. 2-0. 7 goals at this World Cup. Level with Messi, level with Mbappé, and 14 straight international appearances with a goal for Norway. Haaland isn't the only player carrying a family legacy on this squad. We made an entire documentary about the fathers and sons rewriting Norway's football history, and the story goes deeper than you'd think. Brazil got a lifeline they didn't deserve, a stoppage time penalty after a foul on Casemiro. Neymar, on for what might be his final World Cup appearance, made no mistake. 2-1. But there was no time left to find an equalizer. Final whistle. Norway through to their first World Cup quarterfinal ever. Brazil out in the round of 16, their earliest exit since 1990. Haaland's words afterward summed it up best. He said he never expected to beat Brazil, and that some things he thought were impossible, he now knows aren't. For Brazil, a long flight home, and hard questions about what comes next for a golden generation running out of time. For Norway, a match that didn't just end a World Cup run for someone else, it started one of their own. A night that, in their coach's words, changed Norway forever. And here's where the nerves theory gets real numbers behind it. Brazil had dominated possession in their previous match, over 2/3 of the ball against Japan. Against Norway, that number collapsed to just over 1/3 in the first half. They sat deep. They rushed their attacks. They looked like a team afraid of losing instead of one playing to win. So here's the question. Why do you think this keeps happening to Brazil? Is it nerves? Is it tactics? Or is Norway just a genuine bad matchup for them? And after almost 30 years of history repeating itself, do you think this curse ever gets broken? Drop your take in the comments. And if you're new here, this channel isn't just football. We make documentaries about the Norway that tourists never see. The Arctic seed vault buried in permafrost. towns being hollowed out while the sovereign wealth fund grows. Remote islands where it's illegal to die. If you want to understand this country beyond the celebrations, you know where to find us.